Вітаю вас знову на Захід 23, практичній конференції по просуванню на західних ринках. З нами наступний доповідач Matthew. Hey Matthew, I'm gonna switch into English. I just did a little...
That will be helpful for me. Although it's cool to hear you guys speaking in your native language. That's wonderful. Pleasure to be here.
Thanks. It's like a little joke. Like I was at a conference. It's supposed to be like in Ukrainian, but the speaker came and started to speak Chinese. Like, and you know, everyone was it's second day of the conference, and like some people had like a little hangover or whatever, like, you know, and they like listen for 5 minutes and do not understand like what is going on, you know.
No one wants to raise their hand and say like, I don't understand this.
Yeah. Like I met you at the Miami at the Beach conference. This actually like your, I guess, the part of the conference. I don't know how you guys like manage it, but I was pretty impressed with the like information I got there. Even like I do SEO like for like pretty long period of time, but I didn't pay as much attention on local, and I think it will be super useful for our audience, at least like to get to know like about some tips, tricks about local SEO. So let's start. I will collect all the questions and we'll ask them after your presentation. Let's go.
Okay. Fantastic. Thanks, Victor. I appreciate it. Well, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here with you guys. And my name is Matt Versteeg. We're going to give you a quick little backstory of how I got into SEO. It's rather interesting and odd. The name of the presentation today is my favorite local SEO magic tricks. My background actually was a magician. I literally was a magician doing parties and events. I started when I was a kid, like when I was like 9 years old, started to do some magic. I loved it. This magician came to my school and I got on stage and he was pulling coins from my ears and doing all these cool tricks. And I just thought, that's cool. Like I want to learn how to do that. And I began learning some magic tricks, put together a little show and started to perform in my town in Minnesota, which is the northern part of the US. And I just had a great time doing it. And as I got a little bit older, I realized there's people that actually pay for magic shows. They pay for entertainment at an event, but how are they finding these people? And I discovered that it was starting to, this has been a number of years ago, but the internet was starting to become a vehicle where people would look for magicians. They would look for entertainment to hire for their events. And so it dawned on me, I need to figure this out. So the very first day of me trying to figure out internet marketing involved me running some Google ads to a little homemade website that I made. It was called matsmagicshow.com. You could find it in the archives. It's a very, very simple little website that I made many years ago. But my first day out with Google ads was a complete disaster. I went ahead and I must have missed the part where you had to select a budget because I blew $500 my first day and I had no leads, had no bookings. And that was very painful because at the time I was just a college student and I probably barely had $500. So I had to stop the ads and rethink the plan. And I discovered search engine optimization. I didn't know it was called that at the time, but I'm like, how are these other magicians, how are these other entertainment companies getting to the top of the Google search page, but they're not paying for the ads? And so I started to read and research it. Back then, it's different than it is today. You could go ahead and just like stuff a bunch of keywords on your website. And if I linked to Victor and Victor linked to me, we both would rank. And it just doesn't quite work that simply anymore. But it did work at the time. I was able to start booking some shows for myself, 1 or 2 a week maybe from my website. And it dawned on me one day, why am I just targeting one like market, one like major town or one major area? I could drive an hour or 2 to some other nearby cities, larger cities, and probably book shows in those markets. So I expanded my website out. I started to make pages for other cities in Florida where I lived. And it worked. it worked. So I thought, wow, this is kind of cool. Like maybe I should expand it a little more. And so I kept expanding it more, and I was all over the state. And I started to get like 20, 30, 40 bookings a month while I was in college, which decreased my motivation for attending classes because I was booking all these magic shows. You know, it was really fun. I was making some very nice income doing all of these shows. And then one day I couldn't get out of bed. This is a few years later, but I was doing hundreds and hundreds of magic shows every single year for a number of years, and using my search engine optimization skills just in Florida in order to get myself a lot of bookings. And I couldn't get out of bed one morning, and I didn't know what was wrong with me. As it turned out, I actually had shingles. I thought shingles were on a roof. I didn't know shingles was like a disease. It was like, a real problem. And I had to cancel all my shows that week. And I realized in that moment, as much as I loved doing magic shows, it was like I was the business entirely. And that was a problem, because if I stopped working, so did my income. And I really kind of reflected that week when I was laid up in bed trying to recover from this illness, that I loved magic shows, but I really was interested and intrigued, and I loved the art and the science of this marketing on the internet thing. I loved the ability to kind of test and be creative, but there was also very scientific kind of principles of if you test this and it works, you can do it again and it will work, right? It was like an experiment to me, and figuring out Google gives you some guidelines, but they don't really tell you all the rules. They don't tell you how to do it. So I loved figuring that out. It was like magic for me. And I loved the art and science of the optimization and figuring that out. So after that week of being laid up in bed and losing all of those shows, I realized, I ought to expand my website more and just do more with this. I really enjoyed it. So I expanded my website out to the whole country. So I made pages for every location of the United States, every single city, every single market that there was, tens of thousands of different cities. And within about a month's time, I had 2,000 bookings on my site, and expanded up to about 5,000 per month. So anywhere in the US, any city in the US, I was ranked anywhere from probably 1 to 4 or 5 on page 1. A lot of markets, I was the first result. Now, Magicians isn't the most competitive market out there, but if you take all the cities in America, there was a lot of cities. And so I was just getting flooded with leads every single day. And I realized I was onto something. This was very powerful for business. And I couldn't do all of those shows, of course. So I started to send them out to other people, and did that for a number of years, basically just selling the leads, selling the bookings that were coming from my website. I did that for a few years and kind of semi-retired. And I realized, man, this is just, I love the testing and the optimization. And I figured I got to share this with more people. I had people asking me what I was doing. And that led me to basically fast forward to today, where I still have my own brands. I still have a number of businesses that I work on and work with. But my real passion is teaching. And so I have a software company and a training company all around SEO and internet marketing. So my goal here today is not for me to tell you how great I am or the things that I've done. It's been a fun journey. It's been a fun ride. But my goal is to share with you guys some tricks and tips on specifically local SEO. That has been almost my entire focus for the last probably, 15 years at least. So we're going to focus on Google business profiles. They drive a lot of traffic. I'm not as familiar with Google business profiles in Ukraine as I am in the US and some of the other countries, but I do know that when you do a search locally, Google business profiles, that map pack shows up and it drives a lot of business. And we're able to get a lot of phone calls for the brands that we own, and of course for clients and students that I coach. And so my goal today is to show you some of the major ahas that I have regarding Google business profiles. This is not going to be just teaching you everything about Google business profiles. You can find a lot probably just researching online or some YouTube videos or whatnot. My goal is to teach you some things here that you won't find anywhere else on the internet. Okay?
Треба посилання на вчора? Немає часу на підготовку контенту? Хочете розміститись в експертних статтях або рейтингах поряд з лідерами ніші? Тоді вам потрібні link insertions. Ваші посилання розміщуються у вже опублікованих статтях, які тематичні, проіндексовані, а також можуть мати трафік або беклінки. Залиште заявку на сайті backlinkers.com вже сьогодні.
And that is reinstatements are the new verification. So reinstatements are when your listing suspends, and I really believe that every Google listing at some point is going to go through a suspension. Google has filters and algorithms that work all the time, and business listings, map listings, can get caught up in these filters. They can get caught up in this suspension mode. And if your client's getting a lot of phone calls and their listing gets suspended, the calls are going to go away. Like, you're going to lose all of the phone calls, which is very, very unpleasant. So understanding how to navigate a suspension and being able to reinstate your listing really is a valuable skill. And that's why I'm saying it's the new verification. It's actually more important than just being able to verify your business, because if you verify your business and Google decides to suspend it for some reason and you can't get it back, you're in a tough spot, or your client's in a very tough spot. So I'm going to give you some things that I've discovered about how to keep your listing active, keep it in good shape, and avoid suspension. So here's some reinstatement tricks. And that is, Google wants to see proof that your business is real. They want to see proof that your business is real. And we're going to show you in a second some of those items that they really consider, from like the most important to the least important. But the time to gather proof for your client, or if this is your own brand, the time to gather this proof is not when the listing is suspended. See, what most people do is they just put their listing up and they assume everything's good. And then Google comes along at some point and decides to suspend their listing. And then they go, oh, shoot, now we got to like get all this paperwork together and try to get the listing back live. And I suggest to you that the time to gather the proof is immediately when you're making the listing, or when you're helping the client to set that listing up. So if you're doing this for clients, or you're doing this for your own brand, I suggest gathering these items right away. So the first would be any sort of business registration documents, LLC, corporation, whatever it is equivalent in your country. Obviously, get those documents, government documents that show you have a real business. Okay, whatever that is in your country, get those documents. If there's any sort of licenses that are required for you or your client to do this kind of trade, get those licenses. If you have like insurance documents, get those. If you have like utility bills, leases, like if you lease an office at that address where your listing is at, get a copy of that lease, and just keep this in a file. You don't need to go give this to Google anytime soon, but should they suspend your listing, having these documents together is going to make the period of time that you're suspended much less. Because if we're verified and our listing is getting all these calls, all of these leads, and then it suspends, what's going to happen is we're going to go through a period of time of pain where the client is like not getting calls, not getting many leads. And the shorter we can keep that period of time, the happier the client's going to be. Like, if this drags on for weeks or longer, you risk losing the client, because if the client is not getting the lead flow, not getting the calls from their listing, where are they going to pay you, right? Where are they going to get the funds to pay you if their business is hurting? So we want to make sure that we do our job to look out for the client and protect the client. And you really just need to look at two different realms here. The first is, if your client or your listing is a brick and mortar, meaning you actually have a physical location that people go to or could go to. Okay, that's one avenue. The other is if it's a service area business, meaning the business goes to the client and there isn't a physical presence that clients would visit. And Google looks at these two kind of camps very differently. If it's a physical location that people could visit, they want to see, in addition to those documents, they want to see signage typically. Okay, they want to see a sign outside the business, or a sign inside the lobby of the business. They want to see that there's some sort of signage, some sort of proof that people would be able to recognize the business existing there, right? If this is just in somebody's home, or it's in a place where people aren't going to visit, typically there's not going to be signage. So signage is like that one thing that Google goes, okay, yeah, right? Google loves signage. They love seeing that the business visually exists there, okay? Now, let's say the business is a service area business. Signage isn't as important, actually isn't not important at all, because Google realizes the business goes to their customers. The customers don't come to them. So the things that they want to see are photos of your vehicles or of your equipment, okay? Things that would prove that you really do operate that kind of business, but not any sort of signage that people would be coming to you to see. In terms of importance of documentation, those government business registration documents are at the top. They're the best kind of documents that you can possibly have, because they're from some sort of third party. They're from a trusted source, and so Google looks at those as the most trusted resource. And then a step below that would be things like leases and utility bills, things that would be either more easily manipulated, or would just be easier for somebody to get versus them actually having to pay a fee and register their actual company. Okay. So my suggestion to you is, if you're doing this for clients, get as much of this as you possibly can, either for their physical location or for their service area business. But the one thing that's constant is you need to have some kind of registration, some sort of business license documentation, and it will vary, of course, by industry sometimes, or even by country. But get as much as you can and just keep it in a file and tell your clients, hey, we just need to have this on file. I don't need this right now, but if and when your listing should suspend in Google, I will not have to come back to you and ask you to gather all of these things. This is insurance. Let's gather all of this right now. And then should we need this at some point, I can immediately go to Google and appeal this suspension and work to get your listing back up. All right, because the suspension is one of the worst things that can happen to your client's business. So be prepared for it. One little trick I'm going to give you is how to expedite a reinstatement request via Google Business Profile Chat. Okay, if you go to Google Business Profile Support, okay, and you are logged in through a Google Workspace account, meaning a paid Google account. Keywords here, paid Google account. It's like $7 a month currently for one of these accounts, but it unlocks a couple options for you that just any old Gmail account, any old Google account typically will not get. And that is the chat option and a phone option. These are very helpful, especially if you are trying to navigate a suspension, but it can be used for things other than a suspension. Like if you have a problem with your listing, if you're trying to make an edit and it's not working, if someone is trying to maliciously attack one of your listings, this chat or phone call can oftentimes get this, get this department to escalate it or to transfer you to another department. Email isn't usually the fastest option, right? Think about it. If somebody emails us, we don't see it right away. Email's a slower option, but chat with a less than 1 minute wait or receiving a phone call right now, those are great options. So if you ever need to contact Google for anything related to your profile, realize if you have a workspace account, a paid Google account, and you go to support and you click get support and you type enable chat, and you click next. These are just the buttons on the screen. This is what you'll see. You'll get a chat option, a phone call option, and the email option. You'll get the email option in any account that you go in, but chat and phone call, very, very nice to have as options, all right, to expedite your process, okay? So the secret, of course, is using a Google Workspace account. It gives you that live chat or phone support, okay? The second major thing I want to teach you guys here today is gathering more reviews for faster rankings, okay? I had an interesting observation, or a few observations about a year ago. It's about late summer, fall time. And I started to see some businesses that were very quickly rising up the ranks of map results, of these local business results. And it was puzzling to me because some of these listings didn't have big established brands. Some of them didn't even have websites. And how could they be beating businesses that are very established, that have been in that map pack for a while? These were rising the ranks very, very quickly. And in some cases, they didn't have that many reviews. It didn't look like they really had much going on. It seemed like very strange to me why Google would be favoring these businesses. And so what I discovered in analyzing a number of listings, and I will show you a listing here today, and then I will show you some documentation that I was able to find from Google that I have not seen publicly, but does attest to this, is what I call the recency and velocity of reviews. Right? We probably would all agree that reviews would make sense to be part of the algorithm. Like if a business had reviews versus not having reviews, you would think that would contribute to a better ranking, perhaps, right? At least more people trusting the listing or wanting to click on it. But there's actually something in the algorithm that is very tied to the recency and the velocity of reviews. And so how are some businesses coming out of basically nowhere and ranking? So I want to show you an example listing here that that we tracked that was getting about a review every single day. And in the span of about 10 days, this business went from ranking nowhere to ranking almost number one in a large portion of a pretty good sized city. Okay, so this was December 13th of 2022 that we tracked this, and you can see that if you're not familiar with a GeoGrid tracker, what this is all these colored dots basically just indicate the number of position where this business would be ranking in this market. So if you see a 20, it doesn't mean that it's at position number 20. It means it's 20 or worse than 20. And at the middle of the grid where the business is actually located at, it says like a 13 or a 14. That would mean that the business was ranked 13 or 14 out of all of the dumpster rental companies that were in this market. All right. So this was December 13th. So let's fast forward a little bit. Again, this business didn't have any reviews at this point in time, but then started to actively get reviews to their listing. And 1 week later, December 20th, you can see it's a pretty amazing change, right? This grid starts to turn yellow and green, meaning the rankings are really coming up, right? That little dot, a little red kind of, it's going to be small probably on your screen, but that little red dot kind of at the center of the grid shows that it's ranking now number 5 out of all of these businesses, really close to where the business is located at. Which rankings are always better right where the business is located at, and they typically get worse as you go further out because Google does favor businesses that are closer to the searcher. So, but this is interesting, right? I mean, this goes from not looking very good at all to like really starting to almost get into that top 3, which the top 3 would be in that map pack. So that's where they want to be. So that's just 1 week later, about 7 reviews added to their listing, and now they've jumped up that much. Now, you can see just a day, like we started to track it more quickly now because we started to see this movement happening. So we checked it just a day later, and now you can see that it's moved to number 1, but only right where that business is located at, but it's starting to improve around it. And then 2 days later, look at that, right? Number 1, and this grid is half a mile between each point, and it's 13 dots by 13 dots. So we're looking at a 6.5 mile by 6.5 mile square, okay? And it's pretty impressive, right? I mean, we go from, even just a couple days prior, we just kind of hit that tipping point, and now it's 1, 2, 3 for a lot of this area. I guess in some areas it's 4, 5, 6 still, but we were able to check and see, and the number of phone calls from this business just went from basically nothing to getting 1 to 2 phone calls every single day, 1 to 2 leads every single day for this business. So dramatic change. So what really contributed to this? And this was 2 months later that I ran the check again, and you can see it's actually, even though not many more reviews were added in that time, the business just doing phenomenal. Okay. This business had no website, no branding, no linking whatsoever. It was a brand new business. So how are they able to dominate the search results? This is exactly what I'm going to show you. Okay. So typically we have heard that it's dangerous to get reviews too fast, that if you have a client, don't encourage your client to go get all of their customers to review them. Like, don't go get a lot of reviews. Be very slow and, take your time with it. Like, you don't want to do too much too fast. But what we've discovered is the algorithm actually doesn't work that way. Okay. I've actually asked Google's Bard AI recently about ranking factors, and Bard admitted, this is interesting, some of the things that Bard spits out is not accurate, but I do think these pieces are accurate, and that is number of reviews, all right? So what are some of the ways that reviews can affect a business's ranking in Google Maps? Number of reviews. The number of reviews that a business has is one of the most important factors in its ranking. I would agree, right? Businesses with more reviews tend to rank higher than businesses with fewer reviews. Okay? The rating a business has is also a factor in its ranking, right? So if a business has higher ratings, more likely to rank higher than if they had a lower rating, meaning like out of 5 stars, how did they rate? Okay. This third one, though, is why I chose to put this screenshot in the presentation. That is recency of reviews. I'm not seeing this listed anywhere else on the web, not seeing anybody really talking about it, but what I saw with businesses that I tracked and clients that I worked with is Google tended to favor businesses that were getting reviews like right now. So when we looked at that business and it went from nothing to ranking all over the market in like not even 2 weeks, and it didn't have a website, and it didn't have any links, it didn't have any citations, directories, like why is this business ranking so fast? The recency of reviews, I believe, is a massive factor, much more than anybody is even like nobody's even mentioning this. They're not talking about this, not giving this credit. But recency of reviews, Google actually in Bard AI here admits that it's a factor in businesses ranking. Businesses with more recent reviews tend to rank higher. And I believe it's a smart part of the algorithm, because if you have a business that has 500 reviews, but they're all 5 years old, like that doesn't really give us an accurate picture of how likely that business is going to have great customer service today, or if they're going to be responsive today. It doesn't really give us an accurate picture. And I believe what Google's aiming to do here with the algorithm is to give us and to give consumers an accurate picture of what that business is like today. Are they going to be responsive? How is their service, right? Because a business could be really good, but then if they stop supporting their customers and they're not responsive, and they do poor work, like, do we really want to show that business to people? Probably not. So this recency of reviews makes sense why they're doing it this way. And of course, there's more pieces of it. Bard has also admitted to us in a conversation that keywords in reviews and actually even encouraging customers to talk about their keyword, like their service or the keyword in their review will help. And of course, we've seen that that's a factor, right? If a review contains the services or keywords that you want to rank for, that will improve your rankings. But the big thing that I've discovered and why I wanted to show you this dramatic change in this graph was due to the fact that the business received recent reviews, but also the velocity of reviews. It was getting about a review every single day. And I have had people have seen me present this a few times, and they have asked their clients to go get a lot of reviews very, very quickly. In some cases, dozens or even hundreds of reviews in a matter of a day or a few days. And we would have previously thought that would be somehow dangerous. And in every case, people have reported back to me, not only did it not harm the listing, but in all cases, it improved the rankings. Some cases very dramatically, like took the rankings from 8th or 10th or 20th up to number 1, 2, or 3 in the span of a week sometimes, or even just a couple days. So there is definitely something part of the algorithm that people haven't talked about: recency and velocity of reviews. So if you are working with clients, one of the best things that you can possibly do is encourage them to get more reviews. You really can't go too fast with this. Get their customers to leave them reviews. It's preferential if they talk about the service or the things really that you want to rank for in their reviews. And again, it's really about the recency and velocity of reviews. So I'm going to leave you with one thing, which is, how do you find your competitors' review freshness or recency and velocity of reviews? What you can do is you can just go to any of your competitors' Google business profiles. You can go to any of their listings, and you can go to their reviews and just sort them from newest to oldest. And you can get a sense of how quickly they are getting reviews. So for example, let's say you look at a competitor, and in the last month, they've received 4 reviews. What I like to do is I like to figure out at what pace they're getting those reviews. So if they have 4 reviews over the span of a month, you take like the number of days, right? So say 30 days divided by 4 reviews. And you basically get about, what is it, about 7 or 8. Every 7 or 8 days, they're getting a review. So 1 review every 7 or 8 days. And you can do this kind of scoring or calculating across the top competitors to get a sense of how quickly they're getting reviews, okay? And what pace they're getting them at, and also how recently they're getting them, okay? So if you find that they haven't had, if they've only had 1 review in the last 2 months, it's not very recent, right? But if they're getting, let's say, a review daily, or they're getting 2 reviews every 7 days, in order for you to quickly move past them, to pass them up in the rankings, what I found is the surefire approach is to beat their review freshness and beat their velocity. Meaning, if they're getting about 1 review every 7 or 8 days, you need to do better than that. Get 2, aim to get your customers to leave you more than that many reviews. Get a couple reviews every single week, okay? And what you're going to find is, even if they're more established brands, you'll start to pass them up. I mean, we've had our clients and our brands able to pass up very big established brands. But here's the key. If that big established brand is getting reviews right now, and they're getting them at a quick pace, they're very, very hard to beat. But if you have brands with a lot of reviews and they're very established, but they're not getting a lot of reviews right now, those brands can be beat. And they can be beat a lot of times without having the same level of branding, the same level of link profile. Like, you can beat them really with just reviews alone, okay? So reviews are like a new backlink, at least when it comes to local. So if you're doing anything with local, I highly encourage you, look at how you can get more reviews. And there's a number of great ways to do this, but just asking people that have patronized the business to leave you a review is a great way to do it. Some people will have like a QR code that people can scan to go leave them a review. Some people will have, different competitions or incentives or things like that. But bottom line is just getting reviews. And the more of them you can get, and the more recently you can get them, meaning this is a game that you need to stay on top of. You can't just go get a ton of reviews and then do nothing for a couple years and think that you're still going to be ranking well, because Google would rather favor that business that is getting reviews right now. It's more of a pulse of who is serving the customer right now. And I believe that their algorithm is aiming to display like current businesses. They want it to be fresh, okay? So calculate your competitors' review freshness and velocity and aim to beat that in order to pass them up in rankings. All right? So I think, Victor, you're going to ask me some questions now?
Yes, thank you for your speech. Just 1 second.
Yeah, you're good. I know. I just was like, okay, question time.
Yeah, I didn't expect you
to give you a heads up there, but take your time. You're just fine.
Yeah, thank you so much for the information. I already have some questions. Let's start. Yeah, on your opinion, how will Google My Business evolve in the future, like with all this stuff? Because a lot of like SEOs talk about like how the normal SERP results will change, right? But Google My Business is kind of an app, so people don't use like it's basically a SEO mostly in app. What do you think? Like how it can like all this AI thing impact in the future?
Great question. I had a 3-hour session last night with coaching students of mine, and this is exactly what we talked about. So this is very fresh on my mind. One thing that I have discovered is that Google is using a tremendous amount of sources for their ranking data. So your home base, so to speak, is what you put in your Google business profile. They're going to use that first and foremost to determine what they should rank you for. So what's your location? What category have you placed yourself? And those are basic things, right? What services have you listed? What are you talking about? What reviews are you getting? So if your competitors are talking about renting a dumpster, well, they understand you have something to do with dumpster rentals, right? So they're even able to tell if somebody leaves you a review that says, you know, I called these guys at 2 in the morning or 2 a.m. They are now understanding that you are a 24/7 kind of business, or that you would offer emergency services. So my suggestion is, or where I think things are going, is Google is going to continue to use a lot of sources, third-party sites, like government data, user-generated signals from reviews, and even reviews on third-party sites. They're going to aim to gather as much data as they can about your business. If you ask Bard about a business, it will tell you if the business is licensed. It will go out and actually find like the state like licensing bureaus, and it will tell you what year the business was licensed in. Yet, like, you can't find this in an indexed search result. So they're pulling all this not just from like index pages on the web, but government sources, other databases. There's there's a huge depth of information that they have available to them. So getting yourself in as many of these places, getting your business, your client's business, in as many of these places as you possibly can is going to be very valuable. So where I think it's going is understand where the AI is looking for these sources at, and make sure that you are a real, like, you or your clients are real businesses that are very authoritative, and get in as many of these sources as you possibly can, so they firmly understand you and your business. The other thing, which I think is going to be extremely important, is they're very much relying on these user-generated signals, sentiment from consumers, and you want to make sure that that you're doing, or your client is doing, a great job in terms of serving people, because whether they go fully, I don't think they're going to go fully to just like an AI only, you know, search result page for local, but they're going to, I'm sure, keep leaning in that direction. And even if it just goes to, hey, what business offers 24/7 service in that serves my area, that does this, this, and this. Well, you know, if your profile is not optimized, if you don't have good, you know, user signals across not just your Google business profile, but other third-party review sites that are important for your niche, if you don't have references to being licensed or insured locally, if they can't find that you actually are registered with the state or with the country, like, things like this will cause them to not display your business in that suggested list of results, or with the suggested result. So I'm not sure that AI is going to totally take over local like it has some other search results, but I would say now is definitely the time to be making sure that you are understanding where the AI is pulling this information from, and make sure you're doing a really good job of feeding that AI the information that is important for it to understand, for you to be a trustworthy business, for you to be seen as having good service, and of course, feeding it the relevance for the things that you actually do deliver. So we've seen that it heavily looks at your website, but it goes far beyond that. So really just start thinking of it not just in terms of like SEO of like, okay, I just put this on my site and I just get links. Like, that is not it anymore. It is very much looking for your business, all, not even just across the web, but everywhere it could possibly exist, and aiming to gather what you're about, or what your client is about, and using that to determine what it should rank you for. It's far deeper than it ever has been in the past.
Makes sense. And thank you for answering. And next question is, like, what do you do if you are affiliate? Because like you mentioned a really good point about proof, right? Like, you need to have an address, like insurance, like maybe a certification if you are like local based business. But let's say you're, I don't know, in personal injury lawyer niche, right, which is super competitive. Yes. And like, so the entry level goes higher because you need to register LLC, you need to like rent somewhere like this. So affiliate should like not just register on Gmail account. They should have all the information, right?
Yeah, really the era that we're moving into right now is Google is going to be checking and really seeking to understand if you are a real business that is registered, perhaps licensed if that applies to the niche. They're going to want to see that you are really conducting business in a way that every other real business conducts business. So locally, it's going to be tougher and tougher for those folks that do not have some sort of a real business or a real entity. I think in order to exist, they're going to really, in the coming months and years, they're going to have to be a real business, basically. I mean, Google, like, for instance, last night on the session, one of my students who does SEO for personal injury attorneys brought this up essentially, and he was questioning Bard as to, you know, what it's looking for, and it's basically said, you know, it talked about reviews and you know, quality, and then it said awards and honors. And so we questioned and said, well, what exactly do you mean by that, and what sources are you looking at? And it referenced several legal websites that list attorneys, what we'd call kind of directory style sites, but that kind of verify and validate attorneys. And it referenced those and said, well, yeah, the top 3 results that I have given you are all listed on, have awards and honors and are listed on these sites. So like, it's looking to see that those firms are a part of those organizations or sites. And of course, if you asked it, you know, to go check and tell you if it was, you know, licensed, I'm sure it would come back and tell you what the licensing was like for each of those businesses. So folks that are, you know, just kind of affiliates locally, it's going to be very challenging, because Google really does want to see that it's a real brand, that it is a real business, and they do have the sources and are going to be looking to see if there's the licensing, the insurance, the, you know, the data out there that proves that this business is real. So
so you might
want, those folks that are trying to do just like local affiliate type things, I think that model is gonna largely need to be revamped or reimagined, put it that way, because they really do want to see real brands, and it's going to be tougher and tougher for those folks if they don't have a real brand.
Right. Thank you for good answer. Next question: how do you what ways to get more reviews without buying it? Because nowadays everyone, you know, says you need to get review velocity is important. Basically, reviews is like link building for the websites. Makes sense, absolutely. But like, you know, like I know a lot of people that were burned with the, like, you know, fake reviews, and then
Google does a pretty good job of telling what's a fake review, and will remove them, right? So my suggestion is a couple things that can really help. So the first is, there's a number of tools out there. I mean, there's a lot of platforms. I'm not going to recommend any one specific platform or anything, but there's just, if you want to look into it, there's a ton of tools out there, some very simple, some elaborate, but that can do texting. So they can text a customer after an interaction. They can email a customer after an interaction. Generally, what we have seen is the sooner you ask somebody to leave you a review from the time that they interacted with you, the better the success rate. If you wait a day or you wait a week, your compliance rate of somebody giving you a review just goes way down. But if somebody's like at the business, I have several students with clients, and they have like signage in the business, or, you know, a QR code, or, you know, some cases, some kind of, you know, motivation, incentive, reward. But like, the sooner you can present that to somebody while they are at the business, or engaging with the business, or just called the business, the better. So like, if people call the business and you can have a text message go out to them shortly thereafter, hey, how was your experience with us today? And then, you know, give them an opportunity to go leave you a review. That's going to help. I would suggest those kind of approaches rather than like buying reviews, or trying to use like fake reviews, because Google Google can very easily, Google is smart. It just takes them some time to get around to squashing different SEO tactics. And so one of the things that I'm sure they're able to tell is the activity within a profile. So Victor, if I have my phone and I am taking my kids and my family, and we're going to go bowling, or we're going to go to some park or something like that, Google can see if I'm logged in my account that I'm driving there, where I've been. I mean, they're tracking all of that data and activity. So if you just go buy a review from somewhere or use some provider that's going to give you a review, well, that person isn't doing that probably inside of that account. And probably once they've left a review for you, that account, I'm sure, just sits as they go on to another account and do the same thing. So Google, I'm sure, can tell that, hey, Matt's phone is real. Like, he's moving around, he's going places, he's checking his email. We can see all this activity versus somebody else. This account's just sitting there and it just left somebody a review, but now it's done nothing for the last month, right? We're pretty confident we can delete that person's review because are they really real? Like, they're not even active. Versus, hey, I see this person moving around. They're active. They're checking their email. They're visiting businesses or places. Like, so I believe activity is what's going to determine whether or not the review is actually going to stick, and that it's actually trusted by Google as being from a real person that should be leaving that review. So nice. Yeah, it's really coming down to being real. And there's ways, of course, of being able to encourage people to give you reviews and to get them more frequently. But yeah, the real approach is definitely going to be the best.
Okay, thank you so much for your presentation. How people can find you? Like, for example, if they want to learn more about local SEO, or maybe like if their Google My Business account dropped and they want to recover, or they need some consulting, how they can find you, or where?
Yeah, probably the best thing is if I share a link into the chat, will they see that, or should I pull it up on the screen? What would be best? I'm just going to direct people. Nothing's for sale here today, guys. Obviously, I have coaching and software and all sorts of different things, but my goal today was just to give you a lot of value and not to sell you anything here today. But some people obviously will find me and will want to know more about what I do. And quite frankly, the best way really is on Facebook. I tend to give some good gems out on Facebook, and decently active there. So that's probably the best, like, non-commercial place to find me. I'm going to drop that into the chat here, and
yeah.
Maybe you guys can just share that.
I will ask Anna just to put there so the link go through. Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. If you have any questions, I mean, I'm very busy, have a number of businesses and a big family and whatnot, but I always have time for people that are coming up in this industry. So if you have a question or something, obviously I can't give you, free consulting infinitely, but if you have a question or you need something, or if there's anything I can do for you, just reach out. I'm very happy to. So.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your time, and sorry that we just delayed a little bit. And
I'm glad we could make it work. Yeah, I have a couple other coaching sessions today that I committed to, but I'm glad we could make the time work.
Nice. Thank you so much. And
thanks for having me.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
All right. Take care, Victor.
Вітаю, шановне панство! Я Семо з Ahrefs. Дозвольте розказати вам про Ahrefs Webmaster Tools. Наш новий безкоштовний план. З AWT ви отримуєте безкоштовний